Hey everyone, welcome to Financial Revelations. I know the background looks different today. That's because I'm working diligently today and yesterday and tomorrow in Hawaii, and so it's very early here. But I wanted to make sure that you guys had some information. I want you to know a couple things. One, you can always contact us if you have questions about investing or saving or budgets or what should we be doing now given the current political climate. You can call us, you could reach out to us, you can come in and meet with us. We manage accounts on a daily basis, and you can email Corey Nixon, Kory at epsf.com if you wanted to set up a time to meet, or Melissa, and Corey will put both of those email addresses running on the scroller below me. You can also call us at 800-344-2534. We're going back to the Amazon next year in April. April 2nd, we leave. We'll be back before tax day, so don't worry. You'll get your taxes paid in time. And anyway, you could do it from the Amazon because I take a Starlink with this and you have connectivity. So we have a lot of people that want to go. So if you want to go, you got to get on board early because we're going to start having meetings at the end of the summer or thereabouts, just getting everybody lined up and making sure that we have what we need. You do need to get a visa to go to Brazil now. Americans need a visa, but it's very easy. It's all done electronically, and it's just a cash grab. So we reinstituted visas we have always had a visa requirement on Brazilians, and they reinstituted theirs. And there's a lot of reasons for that, that we would have visa requirements for Brazilians. A lot of people come here and overstay their visa. So everybody who comes here, everybody who gets a visa to come to America has to have a meeting, an in-person meeting. And this doesn't matter what country you're from. If we have a visa requirement for you, you have to have an in-person meeting with somebody at the consulate. So it's you got to get a visa. It doesn't take very long. We can give you information about the trip. So I'm sure you've been watching what's been going on in Iran. And I kind of feel like, remember when we talked about the Fed every time we had a podcast or every time you called, we talked about the Fed. And I kind of feel like Iran is a little bit in that ballpark right now where there's news, the news changes, we hear something from the president, which I take at face value because he's the president of the United States. And Iran is really in a very, very fractured state right now. They have, apparently, from what I'm reading, they have two very distinct leadership structures that are fighting for power. And that is the government that was the parliament and their version of a Congress, and the IRGC, which is a militant version of the army. They were the religious police. They're the ones who did most of the nefarious activity for the Ayatollahs. In fact, they were the Ayatollahs' army. And there's a whole nother army that belongs to the country of Iran that has nothing to do with the IRGC. And these are what we would call the bad guys. And the bad guys, they don't like what's going on. For the most part, they're zealots, and they don't want to take Iran into the community of nations. They would rather rule over the ashes of Iran than allow the people of Iran to be cosmopolitan and somewhat wealthy again. Before the fall of the Shah back in 1979, you may remember this, you may not, but you can see videos of it all the time now. Iran was a pretty cosmopolitan place. It was like most other places in the Middle East right now, where people were free to go at will and make money and invest in things and be capitalists to a large degree. And that ended when the Shah was deposed. And if you remember, 1979, the Iranian Ayatollahs took hostages at our embassy. They were there for over a year. To his credit, who I think was one of the worst presidents ever before Joe Biden, that would have been Jimmy Carter, he did try to mount a rescue effort, and they were kind of flying low over the desert. It was going to be a surprise attack, and two helicopters got too close to each other, and they clipped rotors, and it was a disaster. And that's not Jimmy Carter's fault. that doesn't make him the worst president ever. In fact, I admire his willingness to try that. Uh, I, when I was a soldier for quite some time in the U.S. Army, and it's really good to know that people are coming for you. They're going to come for you. Um, and it was just, it was an extremely unfortunate tragedy. And of course, the propaganda that came out of it was horrific. And so that was before and after Iran. And now this IRGC, the Revolutionary Guard, Iranian Revolutionary Guard, really wants to keep them in the dark ages and does not want to open up the Strait of Hormuz. They do not want free flow of traffic. And so we're blockading them. And what's happening is they're going to run out of money. I'm sure they have some cash reserve. I don't want to underestimate that. But at some point, they're not going to be able to ship oil out. And that's their lifeline. That is 90% of their money. They don't really, there's not a lot of product made in Iran. You can't look at a tag on a piece of clothing that says probably made in Iran because they don't make anything except fomenting chaos and distress across the world. And that's really their major export is chaos. And the IRGC and the mullahs and the Ayatollahs' stated goal was to wipe us off the face of the earth. And I do believe at some point in time they would do those things. They were trying to get missiles that would have reached, and they have them now. Well, they had them before Donald Trump showed up at their door, that could have reached a lot of the capital cities in Europe. Now, I know we say, well, that's Europe. But that's a big deal. If somebody's bombing, unlike that, if somebody bombed London, we would get involved because that's what we committed to do. If somebody bombed Germany, we would get involved. If somebody attacked Italy, a NATO member, we would get involved. Now, they chose not to get involved with us in this. I think it was a strategic error on their part, and it's going to cost them dearly. And you can see this slow separation that's happening between us and what's left of Europe. And they have ceded Europe, the leaders of Europe have ceded in many degrees to this unchecked immigration because they have a population problem. And so they went to where there's population, they went to Africa and they needed workers. And instead of encouraging people to do it the old fashioned way, which happens to be my favorite way, to organically produce children, just have more babies. And you could see this happening all the way through, really, once the Industrial Revolution came and expanded across Europe, you didn't need 10 kids for the farm. And so you could see populations dropping because, we all know kids are expensive and everything, but pre-Industrial Revolution, it was a necessity. You had to have that many kids because you needed workers. And as technology progressed and one farmer, for instance, when Henry Ford invented the farm tractor, it increased the yield on a field by 50% because you had to have animals to plow the field. Half of that field was dedicated to food for the animals that were plowing the other half. We didn't need that anymore. So now you automatically doubled your yield in food production just by having a tractor. And you can imagine how those innovations have increased over time. They have tractors that drive themselves now. You don't even need somebody in the cab of the tractor to drive it. So you didn't need as many people on, and I'm just using a farm as an example, but you could expound that across almost every industry. When I first started in finance, I didn't even have a computer on my desk. We had to look everything up. So you'd have like 5 people looking things up for you, client files, stock quotes, all these different things. You fill things out in triplicate. It's a click of a button now. It literally a click of the button. I can, on my phone, on this phone, iPhone, whatever, Max Pro, 17, 16, 98, whatever it is, I could trade stocks right from there. It would have been unheard of in 1992 when I started at the age of 4. So this thing in Iran is going to continue for a little bit of time. Iran is totally crippled. They're militarily, I'm sure they still have a little get up and go, and they have the ability to be pesky because we're witnessing it right now. But if stock futures are up, if the stock market is up, oil is flowing. It's the simplest gauge that you could have. It's like If I flip that light switch on over there, the light's going to go on. I know that. Some countries that's not true, but in America it is. If stocks are doing well, that means world commerce is flowing. And I think this has been kind of a master class for Donald Trump and the military in general, of shutting down a country whose stated goal is to kill us. And when people say things like, we want to kill you, we should pay attention to that. And we should probably act accordingly. And we did. And so militarily, they're extremely degraded. And people say, well, we shouldn't have done a ceasefire because they had a chance to reconstitute. That may be true, that they may have had a chance to reconstitute some things. But listen, we also have an opportunity to reconstitute, and we have technology that they have never even dreamed. They don't even know to dream of the things that we have. That's how further advanced we are than any military, not just Iran, but especially Iran. They don't even know to think of these things. And so we're watching them and we're updating our target deck while they're reconstituting. So we know, look, we've got 88 new places to strike if it comes back to that. Now, I happen to like the fact that we were prescient enough to not bomb the power plants and the bridges, knowing that their government is in shambles. And they're having an internal struggle that's probably going to, I would guess, would implode on itself. And that's what we're kind of banking on now, is a self-implosion. But while we're doing that, we're blockading their oil. And that is their lifeblood, their resources. That's what they pay for things with. They don't have that money. It's like $500 billion or $500 million a day that they're missing out on income. And so the money's going to run out. The fractures are going to grow deeper. The collapse is going to be inevitable, I think, or at least more probable every day goes by. And I'm thinking that this is going to end up great for us. And what does that mean? What does that mean, great for us? That you could do away with the mullahs and the ayatollahs and the IRGC, and you could bring in Iran to the community of nations to be prosperous. And look, I hate war. I do. I was a soldier. I know who fights the wars. I know who's there while the politicians argue. It's us. It's our sons and daughters. And so I don't want to fight a war, but I know there's times where we need to use our military. And I am of the mind that this was a proper time to do that. And I think it's going to work out excellent for us. But I don't want to send your son and daughter over to Iran. I just don't want to do that. And I don't think we're going to need to do that. So as this plays out, we're seeing markets hitting all-time highs. We're seeing the mechanics of the market start to work again. So I want you to believe in that. And there's 2 times in history I want you to look at. Well, actually 3 times. The great financial crisis. Okay, remember how bad that was. I know you remember that because many people lost their jobs, lost their houses. They lost paid off houses because they couldn't make the tax payments, which I think is a horrible thing. They lost paid off houses. So we came back. It was at the end, close to the end of 2009. We were back and functioning, and most of the things were growing. Some stocks stayed low for a lot longer, like the financials. They hung over because they got, at that time, they were so overregulated, they couldn't grow. So it was very tough for them to grow. But all of those stocks are back. The second time, a little bit closer to history, was last year for Liberation Day. Donald Trump announced, the Trump administration announced those tariffs. The market just took it in the chops. I mean, it was like 20%, 15%. 8 weeks later, the market was back and functioning. That chaos is important. It's buying opportunities. This time, the war in Iran, as we're attacking and bombing, and they're sending missiles all over the place, which is mainly stopped, by the way. They don't have the capacity to do it. About 8 weeks, the market went from a trough to back to all-time highs and the fastest in all time of history. And so we have a market that's growing. We have an economy that's growing. It's not without issues. Inflation's a little high, and that's because of gas prices right now. That is going to change. That's going to come back down. You'll see that happen over time. Probably won't happen fast enough for anybody, but it is going to happen. And I think you're going to see a pretty good outcome in Iran. Now, I want you to mark my words on this. I'm going to give it 17 days. Within the next 17 days, we're going to have a lot more closure on this. So I'm going to come to you next week. I'll be back in Ohio. I leave tomorrow from here. Long flights and all that, but totally worth it. I love, if you haven't been to Hawaii, I call it an aspirational vacation for people from the East Coast because we could easily just go to the Caribbean. I mean, why wouldn't you do that, right? You could be in the Caribbean in 3 hours. Takes about 12 hours to get here. It's aspirational. I would recommend that if you can. It's a great place to vacation. It's a beautiful place. You can pick any island that you want. I'm on the Big Island right now, which is one of my favorite islands. There's a lot to do here. It doesn't seem like an island, but people that live here do believe it's an island. There is a Costco here that I go to every time. I'll be there today. So I want you guys to have confidence, keep investing, keep doing, you got to have a plan and work your plan. Times like this, they may actually accelerate your investment plan, but it doesn't change the plan. There are situations that would change the plan. This is not one of them. So I want you to stay true to your plan. So have a plan, then work your plan, and you're going to be fine. We're long-term investors. We don't think short-term. I know you'll see people on financial press that say, well, we're getting out of the market today and we're going to be back on Friday. To me, that's stupid. It really is. All you're doing is creating a tax burden for people. And because every time you sell a gain, you have a tax. And I don't want to do that. I want long-term capital gains. You got to hold stuff for a year. Believe me, hear me now, believe me later. This has worked over my career. We're growth-oriented investors because of this, and we have made a lot of money for people over time. So I am David Szafranski, a real American in real America, just far away, a true red-blooded patriot, and the voice you can trust.